So we left off where Kathy was kidnapped. Do you think Travis will find her? You think he'll care? Do you think he'll go to Alaska? Well, the only way to find out is sit right there. So let's continue on. Page 224. She had part of one bar, which meant that if there was service in that area, she might take one call. She sat there for a long time trying to decide who to call, Daisy, her cousin, or Travis. Travis was closer and could get there faster, but Daisy and Jared have access to an airplane. They could be there in an hour, and I don't have any idea how far I am from Mingus. She remembered Jared's parents owned a small plane. She noticed that she had several messages and listened to Daisy explaining that she and Jared had been to church that morning when Kathy called. Evidently they were playing phone tag, but for Kathy to call late that night if they didn't connect sometime during the day. There was a message from Travis saying that he had to work late and they'd have to put off dinner and a movie. Tears welled up in her eyes as their voices played in her ear. She held the phone to her heart as if it was a real person. When she looked at it again, she noticed the blinking little battery notification at the top right-hand corner. She had enough power for one call if she was lucky. She dialed Travis's number and waited for it while it rang 5 times. Then his voice said that he wasn't available to leave a message. She groaned, and she was about to push the button to hang up when she heard the first little beep telling her that her phone would be powerless in a few seconds. Page 225. Travis, I'm in Jefferson, Texas. Cross the bridge down the bayou or river or whatever water there is. About a mile in an old fisherman's shack. Don't call the police. Just come get me. I've been kidnapped and I'm chained to the floor. And her time was up. She hoped he listened to the voicemail that evening. If not, no one would ever realize that she was gone until Monday night when she didn't get to open the honky-tonk. Well, Kathy Odell, you don't have anything else to do other than fight with the rats until then, so get busy on the lock, she said. That was page 224 and 225. Moving forward, page 230, 231. Just like the damn rain, she muttered, water all around me and I'm dying of dehydration. Travis was there all around me and I couldn't get past Brad to see him. Damn, this is no time to get philosophical. Open, damn it. It didn't. She remembered an episode of NCIS she'd seen late night TV a few weeks before. One of the agents had 2 pieces of wire to pick a lock. Of course, that was make-believe, and the shackle was very real, but anything was worth trying. She inserted a second wire with a lock. If I hold this down and move, hold on a second, that to the one, then abracadabra bippity-boo. The wire broke and the lock did not open. Until every time I lose this battle, you're giving me up a tooth or a ball or an eye. Brad, I might even let you decide to which one. She worked another wire from springs and started all over. The lock popped, and she sat there in the middle of the bed, staring at the shackle until another rat darted across the floor. She jerked her foot free and picked up the metal, heaved it at the toilets, hitting the box of food, and sending all the contents all over the floor. You can have it all. Chew your way through the cans. She opened the door and inhaled a lungful of freedom. She ran through the wet grass to the water's edge. She slipped on and fell headlong into the muddy embankment. She pulled herself up to a sitting position, leaned her head back, catching beautiful raindrops on her tongue. If the bayou hadn't looked like chocolate milk, she would have buried her face in it and drunk it all until she was full. Start walking, Kathy. Her mother's voice was so clear that Kathy's head jerked up and did a quick scan of the area. I'm tired, she said. You'll be dead if you don't get out of here. Kathy stood up. 1 foot at a time, she picked her way through the fallen limbs and rocks as she followed through the bayou back toward the bridge. She had to stay alive to make Brad pay. Cross the bridge, down the bayou or river or whatever water there was, about a mile in an old fisherman's shack. Travis said aloud as he drove through Jefferson, Texas, in a dreary, cold mist. Not even a dog walker was out on the sidewalks. One lonesome-looking police car slowly made rounds. He made a right turn, big corner building, and passed 2 old white frame hotels, one or the other side of the road, but he didn't cross a bridge. He turned the truck back around in a church parking lot and drove back to the library. He made a right-hand turn and he drove across the big Cypress Bayou Bridge. He slowed down on the other side, not sure what to do at that point, and noticed a muddy lot that must used to be parked or put fishing boats out to water. He stopped the truck and got out. She'd said down by the river, the bayou. Which way was down? He hunched his shoulders inside his linen denim jacket, noticed the wooden boat tied up to a rotten tree stump. It had a speck or two of green paint shining in the dull winter evening. The benches were rotted, but the oars looked fairly new. 2:30, 2:31, 2:32. Kathy walked a few hundred feet and sat down on the wet ground to rest. She told herself that she couldn't stop. She saw Durek and Oscar behind every tree. A fish sloshed out in the bayou, and she thought it was them rowing the boat back to the fishing shack to kill her. She hid behind a tree until she was sure they were gone. It was late that evening when she saw a bridge up ahead. It was time to swim across the bayou to the other side, and that water looked damn cold. It wasn't fair, and it didn't look deep, but still, to her bare feet, out into more than she could do. A voice drifted across the water. She squinted. Surely that wasn't Travis. She had to be seeing things. I hope this damn thing holds my weight, Travis said. Blasted piece of junk. If I fall in this cold spring water, I'm going to tear this thing apart with my bare hands. It was hallucination, just her mother had been. Nothing more than a trick of a dehydrated, hungry mind, a state of severe shock. You are not real, she shouted. Travis looked at the apparition across the bayou. Kathy, are you really there? She asked. Be still. I'll bring this thing across and get you. Okay, she said slowly, cocked her head to one side, expecting him to disappear. He crossed the narrow bayou, and she stood there staring at him blankly. Kathy, come on over here and get in the boat. I'll take you home, honey. If I do, I'll drown. You aren't real, she said. He grounded the small boat, kept the rope in his hand so it wouldn't float away, and stepped out into the marshy, wet ground. He held out his hand, and she put hers in his. You aren't a ghost, she whispered. I'm Travis, and I'm real. He put her in the boat and quickly rowed to the other side, her hair plastered to her head. The blanket around her smelled like urine. The soles of her feet were red and bare beneath ratty bits of cloth tied to her ankles. Are you all right? He asked. I will be. I'm so tired and thirsty. Travis, just take me somewhere where there's water to drink and hot water to get the stench off me, please. He tied the rope to the dilapidated wooden dock and led her to the passenger side of his truck. His arms were freezing in the raw, drizzling rain. He couldn't imagine how cold she had to be. I saw a motel on the way to town. We'll go there first and get you cleaned up, he said. That's page 232, 233, 234. Warm air poured in the minute that he started the truck. Her nose twitched and her stomach knotted up. She swallowed several times, but it didn't keep the nausea at bay. I'm going to be sick from the smell of these blankets, she said. He pushed the gas pedal and the pickup lurched ahead. He hoped the cop would catch him speeding and then lead him to the station where she could make a formal complaint. She gagged and clamped a hand over her mouth. Pull over in the parking lot. There is a dollar store still open. They'll have a bathroom. I can buy clean things, she said. We're going straight to the motel. I'll come back to the store while you take a bath. Thank you, she whispered from behind her hand. He braked to a screeching halt under the awning in the front of the motel, bailed out and ran inside the lobby. She gagged and tasted Vienna sausage. She wouldn't ruin the inside of Travis's truck. She unlocked the door and got out. The clean rain and the aroma of the dryer vent drifting from behind the hotel filled her nostrils. She took several deep breaths and the nauseated subsided. Kathy, he said at her elbow. She took 2 steps backward and her eyes widened. Don't be afraid. It's me, Travis. Our room is 2 doors down with an outside entrance. I'll carry you. Don't touch me. I'm filthy. Then follow me, he said. She started yanking the poncho up and opened the door. I hate rats, she said. He put a hand on her shoulder. Not yet. We need pictures. No, we need them for proof. Let me take them. She let the blanket drop down around her shoulders and looked blankly at him as he snapped several pictures. Send those to my computer. She rattled off her email address and jerked the poncho off. Travis sent the pictures as she tossed the rags and her pajama bottoms out of the bathroom door. He longed to hold her, brush her hair back, those nasty strands plastered to her face. But the empty look in her eyes said he better give her some space. Will you be all right here alone while I go back to the store? He asked through the door. She giggled nervously. There's no rats, and there's a lock on the door and water in the faucet. I'm thirsty, and I'm afraid to drink because I think it'll make me sick. They didn't leave you water? Oscar and Duroc didn't have enough brains between them to think of that. A pair of wet underpants and a pajama top flew out the door. He picked them up, shoved them into the plastic laundry bag provided by the hotel, along with the rest of the smelly rags. He carried them outside and shoved them down and locked the toolbox in the bed of his truck. The dollar store was located a couple miles from the hotel and offered gray sweats, long enough for Kathy's legs. The sweatshirts all looked too short in the arms, so he bought 3 Christmas t-shirts from a sale rack. She liked flannel pajama bottoms, so he looked for those, but only the size left they had was small, and they wouldn't come out to her knees. Finally, he found a rack of nightshirts that said one size fits all, so he bought one or two of those. He had no idea what size underpants or what style she wore. He checked the back, tried to figure out how many inches it would be around her bottom, and finally settled on a size 6. Tossed a package of 6 pairs of sorted in the colors in the cart. He noticed socks next to the underwear, picked up 3 pairs along with a pair of fluffy pink house shoes. He even bought a bra and shook his head. He wouldn't even know where to begin. He made a run through the toiletries, throwing a toothbrush, toothpaste, hairbrush, shampoo, and conditioner, shower gel. 234, 235, 236. We're moving to 238 and 239. Jessie answered before the first ring had finished. Is she all right? She's in a motel room, taking a bath. I had to go to the town to buy clothes. They grabbed her in nothing but pajamas, and she didn't even have shoes. She tied an old blanket around her feet to keep them warm, and it stunk like rat urine. They gave her a box of food, but no water. I'm so mad I could rip someone's head off with my bare hands. I'm thinking we'll be home in the morning after she's had a good night's sleep. Tell Amos and Tinker she is alive, and Jessie thanks for working the honky-tonk for her tonight. That's good news, but I'm telling everyone that she took 2 days off to go see Daisy. She can tell them about this if she wants. Other than Amos, no one else is going to know a blessed thing. And Travis, get a hold of that temper. She needs a broad shoulder, not an avenging angel. Thanks, Jessie. She'd do the same for me. If she pitches a fit and wants to come home tomorrow, bring her after she files charges. If she needs another day to get it all sorted out, come on home on Wednesday. Me and Leroy have the place covered till then. I'll call tomorrow with an update. Take care of her, even the strong fall apart after an ordeal like that. Yes, ma'am, Travis said. He went inside and ordered 2 chocolate malts, 3 double meat cheeseburgers, a triple order of fries, 2 cups of coffee, and 2 Dr. Peppers. The Dairy Queen was right across the highway from the motel, so the food was hot when he carried it into the room. She was still in the bathroom, so he set it on the table and went back to the dollar store bags. When he returned the second time, Kathy was standing in the middle of the floor like a lost, wounded soul. A towel was wrapped around her body and a second one around her hair. He dropped the bags on the floor and gathered her into his arms. I was scared, and I don't like to be afraid, she whispered. Anyone would be scared, he assured her. She laid her head on his broad chest, holding me for a long time. Without loosening his hold on her, he backed up and sat down on the king-size bed. You want to talk about it? He asked. The rats came and ate my crackers. I tore up the springs of the wire to pick the locks on the shackles, she said. His jaws worked in anger, but Jessie said she didn't need an avenging angel that night. Later, when she was settled, after she made a polite police statement, there would be time for his rage, and whoever caused her pain would pay. They said he was going to leave me there for a whole week. I barely stood it a day. I'd have been crazy in a week. That rat tried to run away with my phone. Did I tell you thank you for coming to get me? I'm sorry, she said softly. Shh, he kissed the soft, clean skin on her long neck. It'll be all right. I've got you, and they're gone now. We'll take care of everything. She leaned back and looked deeply into his deep blue eyes. She could trust Travis Henry. He'd never let anyone else harm her. That was 238 and 239. Page 250. Traffic was light when he got back on the road. They passed a couple of trucks and one Texas Highway Patrol car. Travis wanted to ask a million questions, but Kathy needed time to figure out what she wanted to do once she was face to face with her ex. Had it been Travis, he would have shot first and asked questions later. But it was Kathy's problem, and for her own peace of mind, she had to take care of it herself. However, no matter what she did or how mad she made him, Brad would not lay a hand on Kathy. Travis would step in if he did, and be glad to take care of the idiot. Page 265, 266, 267, 268, 269, and yada yada. Brad took 2 menacing steps towards Kathy. Get off my desk and get your feet out of my chair. She smiled. Oscar and Duroc send their love. They said to tell you they don't want your $100, and if you want to buy them a beer, they're in New Orleans until deer season next year. Guess you weren't expecting to see them today instead of me. Nice little fishing shack you got down there on the big cypress, right? Cozy. Is that your retirement condo? Are you crazy? I don't know anyone named Oscar or Duroc. Brad's voice sounded hollow. Ah, they'd be so hurt to hear you say that. They had such respect for their shirt-tail kin. She stood up and in a few easy strides was face to face with him. He raised a hand to push her back. She grabbed it mid-air. Don't you dare. You can't prove a damn thing. I was right here and I have a perfectly good alibi, he growled. You got that right. So what are you doing here? Making sure you understand that I'm not afraid of you or your shirt-tail kin, and to make sure that you will leave me alone the rest of my life. I don't want to see you, smell you, or any of your relatives. And if you do, he asked through clenched teeth. Don't test me to find out, darling. Kathy moved so close that he had to lean back. Brad circled around her and sat down in his chair like a king on a throne. He shoved her hat off on the floor and gave her a daring look. Why you lie to me like that and say you were married to that country bumpkin? I suppose now you're going to tell me that the cowboy out there is your husband. That was the straw that put the proverbial camel on the ground. Her boots hit the top of his desk with a thud as she bounced up on top of it and started kicking. Blotter, telephone, folder of papers scattered all over the office. He was standing up to protest when she planted the bottom of the boot in his chest and sent him flying backwards on the floor. He was gasping for breath when he looked up to see her straddling him. She open-handedly slapped him across the face. He drew back, and as she grabbed his hand, it was an arm-wrestling contest in the air that he quickly lost. She fell onto his fingers until she pinned them on the ground. Don't you ever make trouble for me again, or next time I'll fill you full of shotgun holes and watch you bleed out. Do you understand me? You can settle down with that whatever woman you want you can find to please your Uncle Mark, but it damn sure won't be me. He gripped her hand with all the force he could muster and tried to break her fingers. I will kill you instead of marrying you, he growled. She shook free of his hand, reached back and grabbed his thigh, 2 inches higher, and you and Duroc could sing in the same choir. Is it over? Okay, I'll leave you alone, Brad said. I've got pictures and dirty clothes for evidence. I've got Oscar and Duroc's names. I know where to find them, and they'll squeal like little girls if we ever walk into the same courtroom. That is, if it ever gets that far. You remember my bouncer, Tinker? Well, darling, we might just bypass the law and order thing and go straight for vengeance. And if he gets tired of knocking heads together, Travis will step in for him. I'm tired of this, and it's over. She moved back up an inch and squeezed him as hard as she could. He reached down and tried to pry her hand from his leg, but she hung on like a bulldog with a soup bone. That's 266, 267, 268, and 269. He wanted to toss her cold, dead body out the window, but Mark would never believe that she committed suicide or that she fell by accident. Neither would that big bruiser of a cowboy waiting on the steps. And Brad had no doubt if she screamed, that lock on the office door wouldn't keep him out in the hall. Okay, he whispered. She crawled off him and picked up her hat. Appreciate your Uncle Mark. He's the only good thing you have in your life. Settle down. Be a real man. Don't hit on your wife and don't mess around on her. Go to hell. I was a fool to ever get mixed up with you anyway. Brad righted himself and brushed at his suit. He combed his hair with his fingertips and looked around with a bewildered look on his face. One more thing, if you think that you're going to continue this war, check your computer in the morning before you make another move. I'm sending some pictures and a complete report of everything I can remember, so you'll know exactly what happened out there. If I see a shadow that looks like it, we'll go straight to Mark. Your resume won't be worth anything but toilet paper, she said. Get out of here. I never want to see you again, he hissed. That's exactly what I wanted to hear. You should put a better door on that fishing shack. Word on the street is that it won't ever find a decent job if he fires you, but you can always share the fishing cabin with the rats and the roaches, not to mention Oscar and Duroc. And I pray that I have a long and happy life, because if my cousin Daisy or Tinker smells the faintest hint of foul play at my death, Mark gets the files. Goodbye. Kathy settled her hat on her head. I really thought you were special. Guess I was wrong, he said. She slapped him hard. Don't ever try to play on my sympathy. I don't give a damn about you, and that's for knocking my brand new hat to the floor. Tell Mark that you fell and hit your face on the desk. She left him holding his nose. Is it finished? Travis asked. It is, and I'm hungry. Let's go get some pizza and then head home. Want to go through the Lima Drive? It's not as pretty at this time of year as it is in the fall, but it's a nice drive. Then we could have dinner tonight between here and there, and maybe stay at a hotel, she said. Travis took her hand, and she winced. What? He asked. Little finger hurts, but It looks worse than me. The little finger hurts, but he looks worse than me. Travis' laughter rang throughout the whole building. That was 268, 269. Here it comes 270, 271, 272, 273, 74, 75, 76, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. Sun rays filtered through the big white marshmallow clouds that hung so close to the top of the mountain that Kathy could almost touch them. To have a clear sky with no haze in the February was a miracle on the Ouachita Mountains. It was an omen that everything was all right in her world. She'd taken care of the Brad issue once and for all. Tomorrow he'd get the story and the pictures. Oh, sorry, started way up there. I wanted to start down here. Amos has always had me all over the place the past few years. You'd love Alaska, Kathy. We've talked about it before, but I wish you could see it. So do I, but, is what she's thinking. Those 4 words confused the hell out of her. She found peace in Mingus, Texas. How could she be yearning to see Alaska? It felt as if she married the honky-tonk, and thinking of leaving it was the same as cheating. She changed the subject so she didn't have to think about Alaska or seeing it with Travis. Did you go to work for him right out of college? No, I worked for a Tulsa-based company for a year. But then Amos offered me a good deal and I took it. Never been sorry. Someday I'd like to have my own company, but that's down the road. Why? Why what? That I'd want to own my own company, or that it'll be down the road? Both, she said. It's expensive to start a company, and when I do it, I hang up my wandering hat and settle down, he said. When do you plan on doing that? Not for a while, he answered. Not until I find a woman who turns my world upside down just like you do, and who will go anywhere in the world with me. Someone as beautiful as you, but not tied to a damn beer joint like you are, is what he's thinking. Thinking of Travis leaving plunged Kathy into a mood. Worse than that she experienced in the fishing shack. She let him get under her skin, and when he bulldozed his way into the honky-tonk with that kiss, sitting on top of the mountain and looking down in the valley below, she realized that he carved a place out in her heart. The only trouble with that was that he had wings and flew all over the world. She had roots, and they were grounded in the honky-tonk in Mingus, Texas. You've gotten serious, he said. My mind was drifting, she said. He pulled the truck back out and on the road and started the descent down the mountain. So tell me what you would do if you could do anything in the world. I'm doing it. Running the honky-tonk? Don't you ever want to get away from it? After that fishing shack and there on the bayou, I'll just stay at the tonk, thank you very much, she said. They came out of the mountain in a tiny settlement called Page, a place where Highway 259 went north or south. Kathy had the atlas in her lap and pointed south. We'll be home in about 6 hours, not in time to open the tonk, but long before bedtime, she said. Or we could be in Fort Smith in 1 hour, he pointed north. Why would we... No, it's not even an option. She shook her head emphatically. You wanted to go to Mina and pick up that went north instead of south. Seems only fair that it does again, don't you think? But I haven't seen my folks in weeks, and I'm this close. What would you do if it was your folks? She winced. Maybe his mother would only be one at home. His sisters and his father would be at work in the middle of the afternoon. It wouldn't be a big deal to run in and for like an hour if her mother was alive and she was that close. Wild Missouri mules couldn't keep her from seeing her. Of course, she said. Good, you'll love Mama. She's the rancher in the family, and Dad still goes to his construction office every day, but she runs the ranch. I'm going to call her and tell her we're on the way, he said. He spoke briefly, never mentioning that he'd been the knight in shining pickup who'd rushed to her rescue. He just said he was in the area, had a few hours to spare, and he was hung up right after he told her he was bringing someone with him, so put a pot of coffee because Kathy didn't drink tea. It was the longest 66 miles that she'd ever ridden. She fidgeted with her hair, wished for her purse so she could put on a bit of makeup. Her jeans were too tight, her belt had too much bling. She should have brought that plainer boots and not spent so much on the suede coat with the sequins. Her mother would think she was a glorified hooker. She saw a sign that said Fort Smith that was 10 miles away. How could a trip that took so long be over so quickly? Travis tapped his thumb on the steering wheel, keeping time with the one song from another, an Alan Jackson CD. How could he be happy when she felt like she was sitting in a bed of red ants? He made a few turns and then slowed down to turn left into the lane where the white fence on both sides pitting a horse in every size and color. Mama is partial to paints, but she raises all kinds, Travis said. Kathy didn't answer, but she clasped her hand tightly. In her mind, thinking, good Lord, woman, you're 28 years old. You've met parents before. What are you so blasted nervous about? Loosen up. It's this one woman. It's an hour at the most. After that, you can make him take you straight back to the honky-tonk where you can hole up for the rest of your life. He parked in front with a rambling white clubbered ranch house. Big, roomy rocking chairs were scattered down the length of the wide porch. Dormant Cape myrtles waited in the spring flower beds in the circular driveway. Mama met them at the door, and Travis bent to hug her. She was a petite blonde with green eyes, and she wore faded jeans and a red plaid flannel shirt. Travis stepped to one side. I'd like you to meet Kathy Odell. Kathy is my mother, Odessa Henry. Kathy extended a hand. I'm pleased to meet you, ma'am. I'm in shock. You're so beautiful, she said bluntly. He's talked about you so much on the phone, but I never asked what you looked like. I just assumed you were short. I have no idea how I got that notion in my mind. Travis chuckled and Kathy blushed. Page 273, 274, 275. I'm sorry. Where are my manners? Come on in. Myrna has a ham in the oven. I called your sisters and your dad's on his way home. They'll all be here in about an hour, and we'll eat early. Y'all can stay the night, can't you? Travis looked at Kathy. We have to be up in Mingus by tomorrow afternoon, but we can have supper and visit, and then we have to get in some miles. Kathy was barely inside the house. The walls began to close in. She had an acute desire to turn around and run all the way to Mingus. She followed Odessa and Travis into the living room, and every step was a chore. She was too antsy to sit, and she walked over to a huge stone fireplace, glowing embers covering the north wall. Pictures of the children on the mantel captured Kathy's attention and gave her an excuse to keep from sitting down. Odessa joined her. Those are the children when they were little. Travis, Gwen, Rose, Emma, and Grace. Travis is the only one who got my blonde hair. The girls were always jealous. Gwen and Rose keep theirs blonde now, straight out of a bottle. Emma and Grace learned to live with plain old light brown hair like their father. Hello, I heard the prodigal son is home. Homer Henry's body matched the big, booming, deep voice. He met his son in the middle of the room in a bear hug. He was the same height as Travis, but 50 pounds heavier. His light brown hair was cut very short, and his blue eyes looked huge behind those wire-rimmed glasses. Put blonde curls on his head, and he was Travis in 30 years. Dad, this is Kathy Odell. Kathy, this is my father, Homer. Kathy extended a hand, and Homer shook it firmly. I see where Travis got his blue eyes, she said. And his glasses. Neither of us can stand the idea of putting something on our eyes, so we're not candidates for contact lenses. Dessa has to hold us both down to put eye drops in during allergy season, Homer said. Don't be giving away my secrets, Travis laughed. It ain't a secret, it's a failing, Homer said. What brings you to Fort Smith? Y'all scouting for new territory? A gray-haired lady in jeans and a red t-shirt with an apron brought in a tray of coffee, tea, and cookies. Come over here and give me a hug, boy. You've been gone too long this time. And why didn't you call me earlier so I could make a peach cobbler? I could whip you all over the yard for sneaking up on me like this. How's Angel? Why didn't you bring her along? Travis hugged Mina and introduced her to Kathy. This is our head cook and the person who keeps the house running. We couldn't make it without Mina. Hello, Kathy said. I expect you make the best. We'll start this again. I expect you'd best make the sacrifice and hug me too, young lady. I know I'm short, but you're young and bendable, she said. That's page 274, 275. TV must be off the air. Oh, no, it's just a commercial. Sorry about that. Page 276, 277. Yes, ma'am. Kathy bent low to hug the small lady. Now, y'all, don't ruin your supper. We'll have the last of the chocolate cake I made yesterday and the ice cream for dessert. But the next time you best be calling me the day before so I can make your young lady here think that we're somebody. I will, Travis said. Come sit with us. You haven't seen him in a month, either, Odessa said. Maybe for a little bit. Bread is made up and rolls, so I've got a few minutes before it goes in the oven. Miss Grace here likes hot rolls with ham and baked beans. Mina sat down and popped her feet on the coffee table. Travis remembered that she was asked about Angel, so he gave him a quick rundown on her new romance with Garrett. So what are you doing in the area? Homer asked. Let's save that story for supper table when everybody is here, Travis said. Kathy slipped out her coat and laid it on the back of a rocking chair and joined Mina on the sofa, but she didn't have the nerve to prop up her cowboy boots on the coffee table. And she was damn sure not telling these people who she just met the story of her life, or the one about how their son just rescued her either. Did he want to tell him that he was a damn fine lover and that she was just thinking about what he could do to her body, make her break out in hives? Then tell me what's going on in Texas. Did you strike oil yet there? Homer asked. Travis put 2 sugars and a tablespoon of cream into a cup and filled it with the rest of the way of green tea. His mother did the same, and Myrna poured black coffee in 2 cups and handed one to Homer. "You're not a tea drinker, are you?" she asked Kathy. "No, black coffee, but I'll fix it. You take this one, I'll pour myself another." Myrna handed her the filled mug. "Me and you will get along just fine." Travis shook his head. "We haven't hit the pocket yet, but it's just down there. We've got 2 more weeks to bring it in, and then one way or another Amos will probably send me somewhere else. He's got negotiations going on over in Alaska." "I hope you aren't going that far," Odessa said. Travis patted his mother on the shoulder. "There are planes that fly out Anchorage every day, just like they do in Dallas." "Yes, but the idea of you being halfway around the world, that's scary, Travis. Texas is far enough. Tell Amos you want to drill in our backyard," Odessa said. "There is no oil in our backyard," Travis said. "Who cares? I'll pay you big bucks to come home and take care of the horses. Do you ride, Kathy? You can help him exercise them every day." "Kathy is an accountant. She works for Amos in the afternoons. I doubt she'd want to leave Mingus to come ride horses all day," Travis laughed. "I'm also a bartender. I own and operate the Honky Tonk beer joint. Amos was friends with the original owner, Ruby Lee. That's how I got to know him. The accountant job is just part-time until his other lady gets back on her feet again after a wreck," Kathy said. Myrna patted her knee. "Well, hallelujah. I thought you were one of them fancy women that couldn't work because they might break a fingernail. That's the kind he usually brings home." "You really own a beer joint?" Odessa asked. "I really do, and your son is helping me bartend 2 nights a week," Kathy said. 276, 277, 278. She figured Travis would either kick her out of the door or at least shoot her a drop graveyard dead look, but he did neither. He just winked at her and blew her a kiss behind his parents' backs. The sound of car doors out in the yard sent Myrna to the kitchen and Odessa and Homer to the living room. Travis crooked his finger and motioned for her to stand beside him. She started to refuse, but it was his party, and she did owe him big time for the rescue and the shopping trip. When they all trooped up in the living room, he had her pulled up to his side with his hand around her waist. In 5 minutes she'd be gone from one night stand to girlfriend. She didn't have time to think about what all that entailed, but she played along. Introductions between Kathy and Emma, Grace and Rose and Gwen were all made. Emma was taller than her sisters, but she didn't reach Kathy's shoulder. She'd come straight home from school and wore a denim jumper with plaid shirt underneath it. Kathy reached out and brushed a bit of Play-Doh from her hair, shaking her hand. "I've got a friend in Mingus who teaches kindergarten. She's there all the time coming home with that stuff stuck to her," Kathy said. Grace was the spitting image of her mother, short, cute, green-eyed. She wore a black power suit and high-heeled shoes. "I'm glad you called because I've been starving for Myrna's ham," Grace said. "And the only time we get invited is when the fair-haired glory man comes home." "Oh, stop it. Kathy's not going to feel a bit sorry for any of you," Odessa said. "All you have to do is call on Myrna any day of the week, and she'll have supper on the table for all of you, and you know it." Gwen wore a baby blue sweater, the same color as her eyes, and she had her father's fair hair and face shaped in her mother's eyes. She sat down on the sofa, poured a cup of coffee, and propped her feet up. "I'm exhausted. I thought I was going to have to beg off the last minute. The little boy's fever broke, so we didn't have to hospitalize him." "Well, wait until you hear about my day," Emma said. "It was a nightmare. You know nowadays that every kid in school has at least 4 parents, enough grandparents to populate a small third-world country, and if the kid doesn't like the teacher, they all come to witch and moan. Hey, girl, you should work at the courthouse, and you'd see what happens when they all get mad because their sweet little darlings getting put in jail for smoking pot on the school grounds. Your little kindergarten devils turn into our little delinquents," Grace said. "The best place in the whole world to hide out is in the middle of a big family." All Kathy had to do was listen to the conversations between them as they talked about their varied experiences, and finally she got around to asking Travis about what was going on in his world. They all set up a bowl, and when he told them he might be going to Alaska. Oh, they all set up a howl when he told them that he might be going to Alaska. "How do you feel about that?" Grace looked at Kathy. "I haven't decided," she said. That's 278, 279. Here comes 280. "Supper's on the table," Myrna yelled from the kitchen. Now we're picking up at page 281, and yes, the marker is in, so that's probably Oh, we got one more page after this one. Okay, listen up. First of all, welcome to our home, Kathy Odell. We're glad to have you. And second, we have always enjoyed the time around the supper table. It's when we talk about our day. Tonight, you promised to tell us what brings you and Travis to Fort Smith. So we're all ears, and the microphone is yours. She could have slapped the grin off of Travis's face. You tell him. Oh, no, it's your story. Don't leave out a bit of it. Gwen is a doctor. She won't mind hearing about the rats while she eats. And Grace and Rose used to try and make me sick at the supper table. So if there's something really gory you left out when you told me, be sure to include it this time, he said. Okay, then here it goes. Is this a once upon a time story or a mystery? It's a true crime story, Travis said. Page 282 and 283. She smiled and started at the beginning when she and Brad had the big fight and decided to move to Mingus to get away from him. Then she went on to tell about the time when he came to the honky-tonk and Billy Bob claimed to be married to her. That brought on some discussion about Chigger and Jim Bob, with Travis putting in character description or two about Jezebel and Tinker. Then she told about kidnapping, up to the including driving to Fort Smith and being nervous about meeting Travis's family. But she didn't tell them about the bedroom scenes or the jacuzzi. I'd like to hold off on that sorry sucker, Rose said. I bet I could figure out a way to make charges stick to him. Probably not, Grace said. Kathy was right. With those two kidnappers on the lam and her not being able to really pick them out of a lineup, it would be her word against his. She did the right thing. Only she should have taken it to the next level and at least crippled him. Travis sat back with a big smile on his face. A couple more visits and she'd have them all eating out of her hand. But then, why shouldn't they? She was pretty smart and intelligent, and she could tell a damn fine story. Okay, don't jump and run, Grace. You come and help me with the dessert. If your brother would have gave me more notice, there'd be peach cobbler, so if the cake is stale, blame him, Myra said. Dessert was a scoop of vanilla ice cream on top of a square of chocolate cake drizzled with chocolatey syrup and sprinkled with chocolate pecans. Kathy moaned at the first bite. Sheet cake, she asked. That's right. Myrna makes them once a week, Grace said. How'd you know? I've made them for special occasions. Don't tell Travis. He'll be glued to your side and follow you around like a little puppy dog. He loves chocolate sheet cake, Myrna said. What else does he love? Kathy asked. Odessa waved a hand. Don't get Myrna started. She thinks the reason the sun comes up in the morning is to shine on his blonde curls. She spoiled him her whole life. If he had known my way around the kitchen when I got married to Homer, we wouldn't have hired Myrna, and Travis wouldn't be nearly so spoiled. Oh, don't be giving Myrna the medal for spoiling the fair-haired child boy. You and Daddy had got him rotten before us girls were ever even born, Grace said. That set off fireworks with everyone talking at once. Kathy ate at her cake slowly, enjoying the big family atmosphere as much as she did the cake. It would be so easy to fall in love with him and the family, to fit in with all the good-natured bantering and fun. But Travis had his heart set on Alaska adventure, and even if she could hold him down, he'd come to hate her for it when his wandering soul sprouted to wings and fly again. And that's where we leave off tonight. So what happens next? To find out, you got to stay with me, and I will read you the conclusion of all the fine points of Hell Yeah tomorrow night. And that also means you get a book rating tomorrow night. And hopefully we get a presidential candidate who is president by tomorrow night. One can only wish, right? I mean, this has been going on since Tuesday. I want you all to keep washing your hands, keeping your social distance. If you can't get your social distance, always have that hand sanitizer on you. And, when you can't wash your hands, that is, and use that. Wear your mask. And do that not only for yourself, but the others around you. I wish you nothing but health that is good. And make sure that your wealth is good, not only in the bank, but be wealth in the heart with friends and family. You can check on them with a phone call, a text message. You can send them a, hey, I'm coming over, just for a short visit. Wear your mask. But make sure, most importantly, the people that matter to you, you take the gift of time before they're no longer around and appreciate them. I really hope that for November. Anyway, with that being said, good night tonight. See you tomorrow.